All right, guys, let's start this course by 10 tips that I would like to give you before we jump into designing your resume, before we get into really like the different sections of the resume even. There are 10 tips that I researched and that I think are very important to discuss even before we get started. So let's jump right in, and these 10 tips will help you definitely create a better CV, create a better resume, and also have a better understanding of how you should tackle this project. Okay, so let's go. The tip number 1 is to show your passion. It is very important that you find a way in your resume to express your passion. You need to tell your employer, your future employer, what you want in life, what you are passionate about, what your career expectations are. So of course here you don't have to start like writing a novel about your life or what you want or anything like that, but you need to, through your design, through your the physical appearance of your resume and through the wording that you use, you need to let that employer know what you are passionate about. This is super important, and that's my tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to show your impact. That's a common mistake that many people do in their resume, is that they stick to the facts. Okay, so I did this, I did that, I worked for this employer for so many years, and I did that and that. So that's good if you want to be average, but if you want your resume to stand out, you really have to focus on showing the impact. Every position that you will list on your resume, every professional experience, you need to give in a very succinct way an indication of the impact you've had during this period of time, occupying this position in this company. So this is super important. Focus on showing your impact. That's tip number 2. Moving on to tip number 3, and that's a design tip, use colors to stand out. So don't be afraid, don't go for the black and white resume. And of course, this has to be balanced by who are you applying with, like, you know, like what company are you applying for? What job are you applying for? Your resume should not be the same if you apply for a creative job or for an accountant job, right? So 2 very different worlds. So it is up to you to really understand the culture of the company you want to join and you apply for, and to translate that into your resume's design, if I could say. So colors here are very important. I like to use my personal brand color in my CV. I didn't create a lot of resumes myself but recently, but before I did create a fair bunch of them. So I like to use colors to really add an element of, yes, like something different, something that the person who is reading and going through a pile of resumes will not see in every sheet, something that will jump at that person's face, and that is through the use of color, through the use of good design. So use colors to stand out. All right, my tip number 4 is to research your potential colleagues. So researching your potential colleagues will give you an understanding and could bring you an edge in the company, meaning if I know, for example, I'm going to go ahead and apply for a position at Canva, all right? So I would like to kind of know a few people who already work at Canva. So I'm going to go to LinkedIn and start researching Canva and trying to see if there are some people in my network who currently work at Canva. And if they do, I will try to see if there is any way I can approach them, and any way I could maybe talk to them so that they can give me an indication of what this position is all about, how is the company's culture. So depending on how well you know these potential contacts that work for the employer or the company you wish to apply for, depending if you know them well, if you have already met them in person, you could go as far as maybe calling them or maybe having a coffee with them to kind of gather some information about the company and the position you are applying for. If you don't have anybody in your current network that works at that company, you can still research. So researching, today we have social media. It's like super detective out there. You can go crazy on just finding these people on Facebook, finding these people on LinkedIn, finding these people on Twitter, see what they tweet about. So it's always good, especially if you know who is part of the recruiting team, if you know who is part of the HR team, the human resources, to kind of research, because if you can like hit a chord of something that one of these people who is going to read your resume is interested about, if you know they are interested in the sports team, or if you know they are interested in this particular type of literature, or I don't know, this type of software that they've been using, then you could try to add one of these, like to mention one of these hobbies or skills or whatever in your application. Could be your resume or your cover letter, but that could make a difference, because that person will see, oh, we have something in common, like we both like to play baseball on the weekend or something like that, you know. So researching your potential colleagues is always a plus. And me, since I work at Canva, I've been receiving now on LinkedIn a couple of people who are trying to reach out to me for this exact same reason. I have one here. I won't name the person's name, of course, but the message goes like this. We are connected via LinkedIn, and it looks like we share a common belief in the power of business to make a difference in the community. I'm reaching out as I've applied for a role of blah, 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 blah at Canva, which is a role that is currently being advertised via LinkedIn. Super keen to work at Canva, and I'm really attracted to the company's purpose, blah, 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 blah. And that person finishes the message by saying, any feedback or intel you could share would be greatly appreciated, and look forward to having the opportunity to meeting you in the near future. So she is reaching out, which is totally okay, to try to get some more information about basically anything. That person is casting a very wide net. Any intel, any feedback would be very appreciated. So that's a very good message, in my opinion, reaching out. I unfortunately didn't have the time to answer that person, because to be very honest, I didn't know her. I've never heard of her before. I didn't take the time to do it, but she tried, and I wanted to give that person credit for trying. And I believe it is something worth trying if you really want to get that job. That shows motivation as well. All right, moving on to tip number 5. Be confident. That is super important. Your resume needs to breathe confidence, you know, like it needs to show you as an expert at your position, at your role. It doesn't mean you have to lie about your skills or your competencies, but you need to appear as someone who knows his stuff. Like, you know, someone who knows what he's talking about, someone confident. So by showing your impact, by utilizing some strong action words and verbs, you can achieve this result of sounding super confident. So always try to appear and to sound very confident in your resume. That's tip number 5. Tip number 6, make every section count. So we will have an entire lecture about the different sections of the resume. Diana is going to talk about this, I believe, in the next lecture. But basically this tip means this information that you're mentioning in your resume is not so important, just don't include it. All right, so every section needs to count, meaning if it's not super relevant, just don't insert it here. Your resume should contain only the super necessary information. So that's tip number 6. Don't add anything to fill up. Usually it's the other way around, right? You are struggling to make all the information fit into one page because it should fit into one page. And so there is this dilemma, what could I get rid of? And so that's a good dilemma. You have to go through this, like what could you get rid of on this resume? What information is not 100% necessary? So go through this once you have written the whole thing and try to keep only what is super necessary. All right, that's tip number 6. Tip number 7, customize your resume for every position. That is uber important, super important indeed, because of a couple of reasons. First, you don't want to make any blooper, I would say, like sending a resume and then you realize, oh no, I forgot to change this, or I forgot to tweak this, I forgot to personalize this. That would mean immediately that you don't get the job. Second, a lot of companies, especially bigger companies, use software called ATS software, and ATS stands for applicant tracking system. So these are basically computer programs that will scan a resume and search for relevant keywords, especially keywords that appear and that are important in the job description. So if you apply, for example, for a copywriter position in a company, let's say a news company, and that copywriter position has important keyword like editor-in-chief in the job description. This ATS software, so this tracking software, will go quickly through your resume trying to find that same keyword, because it means if you have been editor-in-chief at another news company, then you have experience. So then you pass the first, I would say, barrier of selection, the first round of selection. So if you don't customize every resume for every position, there's a good chance that your keywords are not going to match perfectly with the keywords in the job description. So that's an important reason why you should customize every resume for every position. I'm not saying you should change your entire resume. You should probably customize a couple of sections, a couple of key phrases, of key elements on your resume. So very important, and that is tip number 7. Tip number 8, use reverse chronological order. What does that mean? Very simply, for your experience, start with the most recent job that you've had, the most recent experience. So if we are in 2020, start with the jobs that you went through, that you worked at in 2020, and then just go backwards and go back in time and maybe list the 3 or 4 most relevant experiences. But yeah, start by the most recent one. So that's what it means. Tip number 9, yes, super important, clean up your social media profiles. So your resume, especially today, 2020, is only the beginning of the investigation, right? If the employer, the company really wants you, they will go right after reading your resume, your cover letter, they will go, or maybe even before that, they will go check you out online. They will Google you, and then they will try to find your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your everything, and they will go through that meticulously. So make sure that before you start applying for jobs, that your social media are on point. So get rid of all the partying, the drinking, the crazy photos, the strong opinion pieces. Like all of this needs to be cleaned up and needs to look professional. Okay, so pay special attention on Facebook and how people can see your profile. There's this option on Facebook, it says see as, so you can observe how external people can see your profile. So people who are not your friends, how do they see your profile? So this is an entire course. It could be like the topic of an entire course, how to clean up your social media, how to optimize your profiles, and how to basically manage your online reputation. That's what it is about. But here is just going to be one of the tips. Clean up your social media profiles. It is super important, especially today, that we rely so heavily on these social media profiles. In my case, I didn't even apply for a job at Canva. Canva found me via my social media profiles, via my Facebook group. So that could be another reason. Like, you should clean up your social media profiles, even though you're not applying for a job, because who knows? All right. And then my final tip number 10, a very practical tip. Name your files properly. So once you have created that beautiful resume, once you have created that very motivational cover letter, don't just leave it like that and send it to the employer, attach it to your email and send it with whatever name the file might carry at the time. Go through the extra 2 seconds that it will take you to right-click on that file and rename it. For example, your resume should say your first name, last name, and then resume, and your cover letter the same. So for example, Ronnie_Hermosa_letter or resume. Because once you will apply with these files attached to your email, then maybe someone on the other side, like in the company you're applying for, will download that to their desktop, and they might not be super organized, or something might happen, like a phone call or something happens. And then if the file is not properly renamed, then they might see a file there on their desktop, but forgot to bring it to the folder, or forgot to, 1,000 different reasons. But if your name is there, then whoever is going to open that document, they will know, okay, that's a candidate, Ronnie Hermosa, and that's his letter, that's his resume. So that's what I had for you guys, 10 tips before we start designing our resume. I think these 10 tips could already give you a very good sense of where we are going with this course. We are going to create a very awesome resume. So stick around. In the next lecture, Diana is going to talk about the different sections of your resume.
Diana, come see my CD, come.